So this started some rumor that because he was barefooted, he's dead.
Hollywood thought it had Paul McCartney all figured out. But this time, he turned the tables himself. At 82, after decades of upholding the image of this charming gentleman of the British invasion, Paul suddenly revealed a secret that left the media stunned. In a private gathering with close family, now leaked to the public, Paul candidly named 6 bands he had absolutely hated. Not out of jealousy, but because of deep, hidden wounds, from behind-the-scenes betrayals to quiet contempt. But it was the 4th name, a band once considered a soulmate of the Beatles, that revealed the deepest resentment. A truth kept secret for over 50 years. And now, McCartney is done staying silent. 1. The Rolling Stones, copycats or true rivals? For decades, fans have framed it as the ultimate musical rivalry. The Beatles versus the Rolling Stones. 2 iconic bands of their era, 2 seemingly opposing creative forces that together wrote an epic chapter in the history of global music. But behind the scenes, away from the spotlight and the polite compliments, Paul McCartney never quite saw it that way. In fact, he never truly considered the Stones real competition. In 1968, during a recording session at Abbey Road, no press, no fans, no offhand remarks, Paul let slip something he had kept to himself for years. The Stones? Just a lucky blues cover band. The comment never made headlines, never appeared in print, but it was like a slow, silent dagger, driven deep into the heart of what the world thought was a friendly camaraderie between 2 musical giants. And incredibly, more than half a century later, that wound hasn't healed. In a 2021 interview with The New Yorker, Paul repeated the sentiment, this time with a calm but cutting twist. The Stones are a blues cover band. Our net was cast a bit wider. Short, polite, and loaded with implication. Mick Jagger, never one to let a refined jab slide, fired back with his own bit of dry mockery. The Beatles, he said, were just a 4-piece band with 1 drummer. A snide dig that reopened an old debate. Was Ringo Starr truly an irreplaceable piece of the Fab Four, or just a lovable shadow kept around out of habit? The bitterness peaked in 1969 when John Lennon suggested producing an album for the Stones. Paul was furious. No yelling, no insults, just a quiet question. Why waste time on a derivative band? It was one of the rare times he let slip his deep irritation at those he felt were always chasing the Beatles' shadow. And if Paul could be that blunt with peers of his own era, then you haven't yet heard what he has to say about those who didn't just imitate the Beatles, but tried to burn their entire foundation to the ground. Because after the imitators came the rebels. Not copying, but smashing. Not honoring, but vowing to destroy. Among them was a band that once used Beatles posters as target practice in their rehearsal room. That's coming next. But first, think about this. Were the Rolling Stones mere imitators or legends in their own right? Was Paul being too harsh or just brutally honest from someone who never accepted second place? Two, the Sex Pistols, when rawness becomes the message. If there was ever a musical movement that truly got under Paul McCartney's skin, it was punk. Not because of the melodies. Not even because of the lyrics. But because of the attitude. Punk was raw, reckless, intentionally unpolished, a direct assault on everything Paul had spent decades building. And at the heart of that storm were the Sex Pistols. They didn't come to play music, they came to destroy. And their target was clear. Everything the Beatles stood for. When the Pistols exploded onto the scene in 1976, their mockery of traditional music wasn't just noise, it was a declaration. A full-frontal challenge to the sacred values McCartney held dear. According to those close to him, Paul once described their music as an assault on the ears. He couldn't comprehend how someone could take pride in not knowing how to play their instrument. In his world, music was discipline, struggle, devotion, not rebellion dressed up as indifference. But the disdain wasn't one-sided. Johnny Rotten, never shy with his opinions, called Paul a living dinosaur, the embodiment of an outdated world punk aimed to tear down. Sid Vicious was even more blatant. According to Wings drummer Denny Seiwell, the Sex Pistols once used Beatles posters for target practice in their rehearsal space. Paul heard about it. He laughed, a dry, reluctant laugh. But his eyes didn't laugh. Those close to him say he wasn't angry, he was hurt. Deeply. Then came the moment of inevitable confrontation. In early 1977, both Wings and the Sex Pistols were recording at Air Studios in London. Paul, walking the hallway with a cup of tea in hand, happened to cross paths with Sid Vicious and other Pistols members. Ever the gentleman, a trait he never lost, Paul extended his hand in greeting. Sid stared at him. No handshake. No smile. Just muttered, low and sharp. Establishment sellout. Paul stood still for a moment. Said nothing. Didn't scold. Just turned and walked away. From that moment on, he erased their names from every conversation. Years later, when asked about punk, Paul admitted it had helped clean up the music industry. But when asked specifically about the Sex Pistols, he gave only 3 words. Not my cup. The real climax wasn't in the sound, it was in the silence. And Paul's silence as he turned away from Sid Vicious, no words, no glance, was the quiet funeral bell marking the end of any shared ground between 2 generations of artists. One built legend through music. The other tried to smash it with slogans. And if the Sex Pistols were the face of destruction, then what comes next is a different kind of confrontation, sweeter, subtler, but no less cutting, when a band calls themselves heirs to the throne, but tramples it without ever truly earning it. So now it's your turn. Do you think punk was the wake-up call a stale music world needed? Or was it just rage mistaken for revolution? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't blink, because next up is a story that might shock even the most loyal Beatles fans, Oasis, the ones who honored the legacy and tried to hijack it. 3. Oasis, imitation or insult. Oasis, imitation or insult. Paul McCartney never quite bought into the hype. He's seen his fair share of copycats over the years, but none as bold, brazen, and unapologetically obsessed as Oasis. In the 1990s, as British rock stepped back into the spotlight after years in the shadows, the Gallagher brothers, Liam and Noel, emerged as if born to inherit the throne the Beatles had left behind. No one dared to claim they were bigger than a legend, except Oasis. They didn't just sound like the Fab Four. They dressed like them, acted like them, even posed like them. Their admiration wasn't subtle. Noel once openly declared, if there were no Beatles, there would be no Oasis. To the public, that sounded like flattery. To Paul? Not exactly. At first, McCartney tried to play nice. He once called Oasis a great band with great energy. But behind closed doors, he wasn't impressed. Their obsession seemed shallow, not an homage, but a branding strategy. It wasn't just mimicry, it was arrogance. Noel Gallagher boldly claimed Oasis were bigger than the Beatles, echoing John Lennon's infamous 1966 remark, but without the nuance, the introspection, the cultural context. To Paul, it wasn't a tribute. It was an insult disguised as admiration. Copying chords isn't enough, Paul once told a friend. You have to live the life. But what bothered him most wasn't the music, it was the attitude. Oasis didn't just admire the Beatles. They acted like they were entitled to the legacy. As if legend was something to be passed down, not something earned through sweat, sacrifice, and soul. Paul was infuriated by that. To him, they weren't carrying the torch. They were chasing ghosts, living off someone else's past without creating something truly their own. And yet, there's still another band, one whose imitation went even deeper. But somehow, they managed to charm the Beatles. Because when it came to the Monkees, Paul didn't just feel copied. He felt strangely conflicted. That's what's next. 4. The Monkees singing puppets? The Monkees, a made-for-TV pop experiment turned pop culture phenomenon. Chart-topping songs, a hit television show, and hordes of screaming fans. But to Paul McCartney, the Monkees were little more than a punchline. He reportedly dismissed them outright as plastic replicas, and according to Beatles aide Alastair Taylor, Paul would change the radio station the second one of their songs came on. His problem wasn't just their sound, it was their very existence. While Paul had spent years grinding away in the gritty clubs of Hamburg, sleeping in rat-infested rooms and performing live night after night to hone his craft, here were 4 actors pretending to be musicians, handed fame on a silver platter. It wasn't imitation anymore, it was replacement. A prepackaged, polished alternative that skipped the struggle. That resentment even spilled into real-life encounters. At a party in Los Angeles in 1968, Paul reportedly walked away mid-conversation with Monkees frontman Mickey Dolenz. Years later, Dolenz remarked bluntly, "I don't think he ever saw us as real musicians." Even when the Monkees began fighting for creative control and writing their own songs, McCartney's opinion barely budged. In a 2011 interview, when asked about the group, Paul offered one of his signature half-compliments, polite but icy. Catchy tunes, but definitely not the Beatles. His smile may have softened with time, but the underlying disdain never fully faded. And the next band on the list? They didn't imitate the Beatles. They surpassed them on the charts at a time when Paul's momentum was slipping fast. This wasn't about imitation anymore. It was about dominance. And for Paul, that was a bitter pill, hard to swallow, impossible to ignore. But what do you think? Were the Monkees a real band or just a successful TV experiment? Was Paul being overly harsh or simply defending what he spent his youth fighting to build? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because up next is a new chapter in this list when the ones who didn't copy the Beatles dethroned them. With disco beats and a dance floor glow. 5. The Bee Gees, disco domination and silent bitterness. They didn't imitate the Beatles. They surpassed them. And that's exactly why Paul McCartney never truly accepted the Bee Gees. By the late 1970s, as Paul began slipping down the charts, disco was rising and leading the charge with the Bee Gees, riding high on the explosive success of Saturday Night Fever. To the world, they were the new pop geniuses. But to Paul, they were little more than of lightweight Beatles, all studio shine, lacking soul. According to Wings guitarist Lawrence Ubear, Paul once scoffed. 3 chords like everyone else. Just faster. The discomfort only deepened as the Bee Gees began smashing records that had once belonged to the Beatles. In 1979, both Paul and the Bee Gees were recording in Miami, and Paul went out of his way to avoid them entirely. One studio engineer recalled that when news broke of yet another Bee Gees chart milestone, Paul simply went quiet, his eyes darkening. No congratulations. No reaction. And when Maurice Gibb passed away, Paul's tribute was cold and brief. No one said it aloud, but everyone understood. Beneath it all was the quiet bitterness of an artist slowly being replaced by an era he no longer belonged to. So what do you think? Were the Bee Gees true geniuses, or just a shiny product of their time? And Paul, too prideful, or simply an artist who couldn't bear to watch his crown being passed on? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't look away, because the final chapter is coming next, a very different kind of rival. One who once inspired Paul, and later haunted him for life. Six, the Beach Boys, inspiration, rivalry, and unspoken envy. Among the bands that stirred something uneasy in Paul McCartney, one name stands apart. No noise. No imitation. No chart dominance. But they were the only band Paul ever admitted. God Only Knows is the perfect song. That name? The Beach Boys. When Pet Sounds dropped in 1966, Paul was visibly shaken. He listened to it over and over, dissecting every harmony, every rhythm, until it became an obsession. According to producer George Martin, Pet Sounds was the very spark that lit the creative fire behind Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. But admiration soon morphed into a quiet rivalry. As Brian Wilson began work on Smile, Paul watched closely. And when Wilson collapsed under the weight of his own perfectionism, Paul's response was cutting. If you can't finish what you start, you shouldn't be in this business. At a party in 1967, Paul reportedly dismissed some of the Beach Boys songs as simple and repetitive. Brian Wilson said nothing. But afterward, he went silent for days. Even when Paul praised God Only Knows, he couldn't resist adding a qualifier. A perfect song for American pop at the time. So what do you think about the Beach Boys? Geniuses of harmony and innovation, or just a bright moment in pop history? And more importantly, have all these rivalries really been about others? Or are they reflections of a man constantly measuring himself against the world he helped shape? Because behind that friendly smile is an artist who spent a lifetime trying to protect the very fire he once set ablaze. You've just heard the story of 6 bands Paul McCartney simply couldn't stand. From the rebels who openly mocked his legacy, to the disco giants who overshadowed him on the charts, and even the musical minds who once sparked his creativity, only to leave behind a quiet scar. It turns out, even legends aren't immune to personal conflicts, creative clashes, and long-simmering rivalries. So what about you? Which of these 6 names surprised you the most? Do you think Paul was being too harsh, or was he simply voicing the raw truth of an artist who refused to tolerate pretense or disrespect in his craft? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you love Untold Stories, behind-the-scenes twists, and the truths hiding beneath the spotlight, don't forget to hit follow and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next clash between cultural icons. Because behind every legend, there's always a crack. And in music, no one is untouchable. Not even Paul McCartney.
Because I just felt my own self. I didn't want to do the nude scenes.
Seared me. Whole era.
Brooke, Hollywood's Virgin Goddess. New York, 2025. A quiet room at the Whitney Museum suddenly erupts into chaos when a never-before-seen image flashes on the projection screen. It's a photo of Brooke Shields, 10 years old, exposed, her eyes vacant, sitting motionless under stage lights. No one knows where the photo came from. But someone cries out, "That's not art. That's a crime, framed in fame." And then, the gates of 1970s Hollywood hell swing wide open. This little girl could sell her very soul. Keep going if you're ready to uncover the truth about how a child was sold by the very person who gave her life and how she survived to tell it all. Brooke Shields was born on May 31st, 1965, in Manhattan, New York, into a chaotic and unstable family from the very start of her life. Her father, Francis Shields, was a wealthy but irresponsible man, and her mother, Terry Shields, was consumed by alcohol and fantasies of fame. She didn't hold my hand through childhood. She dragged me down the red carpet like I was a designer handbag she needed to get into Hollywood. Brooke Shields, from the unpublished memoir My Mother's Camera. Terry Shields, Brooke's mother and also her manager, signed a contract allowing her daughter to be fully photographed at just 10 years old. When Gary Gross lifted his camera, the flash lit up Brooke's tiny body, capturing not just an image, but unintentionally exposing the fragile innocence of a child. Terry showed no concern. She stood behind the lens, mirror in hand, adjusting her daughter's hair. When Brooke trembled slightly, she said, "Don't be nervous. This is art. You're beautiful. There's nothing to be ashamed of." They shot 7 rolls of film. One of them became the cover of the book Sugar and Spice by Playboy Press, a so-called representation of pure child photography art that the media at the time chillingly described with words like bold and innocent icon. But after the publication of Sugar and Spice by Playboy Press, a long legal battle ensued. The court ultimately ruled in favor of the photographer, leaving Brooke with no control over her own image. With scenes that sparked widespread debate for their boldness and sensitive content, the film faced intense backlash from both the public and critics. Many condemned the work for crossing the line by placing a child actress in age-inappropriate situations. The film was subsequently banned in many areas, from several U.S. states to countries around the world. However, for Terry Shields, Brooke's mother and the force behind every career decision, none of that mattered as much as one singular goal: making the whole world look at her daughter. She stood beside her daughter, smiling with pride as Brooke made her rich and famous, something she considered the most important thing in life. Brooke's subsequent contracts continued to require her to perform in suggestive scenes. In the 1979 film Just You and Me, Kid, the young actress earned $250,000 through a deal her mother arranged with the director. Despite her young age, Brooke had become an icon. But that fame came at a price. By the time she was 16, Brooke Shields was one of the most recognizable faces in America, largely due to the controversies surrounding her life and career. Time magazine even reported that she earned about $10,000 a day solely as a model. Audiences remember her from hit films and shows like The Blue Lagoon, The Muppet Show, Endless Love, and Sahara, where she continued exploring both modeling and acting. Although Sahara was a critical and commercial failure, Brooke reportedly earned $1 million for her role. Adding to her notoriety, she also became the only actress to win a Razzie Award for Worst Supporting Actress. However, rather than continuing down the path of entertainment, Brooke made a major career change. She stepped away from the spotlight and enrolled at Princeton University, seeking a quieter life. But even after leaving Hollywood, Brooke's life was far from peaceful. The fame that had followed her since childhood never truly faded. Hollywood, a world of wandering hands and private dinners. Michael Jackson, the soulmate. Brooke and Michael were once Hollywood's most unusual pair. Not lovers in the traditional sense, but more than just friends. They held hands at events, whispered about life, and bonded over the shared pain of lost childhoods. Michael once proposed. Brooke declined, believing, "We were two kids who never grew up, and when two children marry, there's no one left to protect the other." President Donald Trump, when power believed it could claim even Brooke's purity. In 1999, shortly after Brooke divorced Andre Agassi, she received a call from Donald Trump, then a scandal-ridden businessman. Trump said bluntly, "I'm the only man classy enough to be seen with you now." Brooke later recounted on Jimmy Kimmel Live that she hung up the phone without saying a word. But inside, she trembled. Not because of Trump himself, but because of the ease with which he spoke, as if her childhood and body had always been on display, and now it was simply time for the highest bidder to make his purchase. George Michael, Prince Andrew, and the artistic embraces. Brooke once received bizarre bouquets and invitations for intimate photo shoots from famous men who were fixated on her image, the fantasy of the desirable virgin girl. One even offered to pay to use her photo as a CD cover with a blurred bra effect. I was the obsession called ownable purity. They didn't want to sleep with me. They wanted to conquer an ideal they could never reach, like some twisted psychological game. Agassi, a marriage as swift as a tennis match and as painful as a shattered racket. In 1997, Brooke married tennis star Andre Agassi. On the outside, they were the golden couple. But behind closed doors were jealousy, manipulation, and icy silence. Agassi once smashed all his championship trophies after watching Brooke perform a romantic scene on TV. He also pressured her to stop taking antidepressants, claiming they numbed her emotions. When they divorced, Brooke didn't take a single cent from Agassi's wealth. She simply wrote in her journal, "My marriage was just another contract, signed out of fear, not love." In 2001, Brooke married screenwriter Chris Henchy, and in 2003, she gave birth to her first daughter, Rowan Frances Henchy. The media called it the spectacular rebirth of the former teenage goddess. But behind the smiling cover photos of Brooke cradling her child on People magazine was a hidden truth. She couldn't look at her baby without feeling fear. Brooke described the moment she first held her daughter as hollow as the walls of a psychiatric ward. There was no connection, no love, only a vague, panicked thought, "I don't deserve to be a mother." Postpartum depression weighed on her like makeup she couldn't wash off. Brooke couldn't sleep. She couldn't eat. She didn't cry. She would just stand silently for hours in front of the crib, imagining what might happen if she opened the window and stepped off the ledge. I once thought death might be the easiest way to reconnect with myself. When Brooke publicly shared that she was taking antidepressants, especially Prozac, Tom Cruise, Hollywood star and prominent Scientologist, attacked her on live television. She doesn't need medication. She needs to understand what's causing the psychological problem. She's poisoning herself. For the first time, Brooke fired back with all the fury of a new mother. "I'm not some alien warrior like you, Tom. I'm a woman who gave birth in blood and tears, and if medication keeps me alive to hold my baby, I'll take it for the rest of my life." Her response became a symbol for millions of mothers silently battling depression, forced to smile while falling apart inside. For Brooke, childbirth wasn't a sweet dream. It was a brutal reckoning. She had to relearn everything: how to love, how to be patient, and most of all, how to forgive her own mother. I used to fear becoming a replica of Terry, the controlling, imposing mother who manipulated under the guise of love. But I chose the opposite: to listen, to hold my child when she acts out, and to say, "I'm not perfect, but I'm here." In 1990, at age 25, Brooke was famous, beautiful, and revered across Hollywood as the ultimate stormproof goddess. At a post-event party in Los Angeles, she was invited to a private dinner with a high-profile producer, a man who had worked with Martin Scorsese and was known as the godfather of the American cinema renaissance. Brooke said she felt no alarm. He was a familiar face, someone who had previously helped her turn down exploitative roles. but when she stepped into the hotel room, the lights dimmed. And there was no dinner. Just a sofa, a bottle of wine, and eyes already drunk. I didn't scream. I just went numb. It was like my body had learned to be used as a prop. Brooke Shields, as recounted in the 2023 documentary Pretty Baby, Brooke Shields' Brooke told no one. Not the police. Not her husband. Not even her mother, who, by then, had cut ties with her. Because inside her echoed a voice she'd known since childhood: if you speak up, you'll lose your career. And if you lose your job, no one will love you. The same industry that had worshipped Brooke as a symbol of femininity was also the place where she wasn't allowed to be a victim. Because the world didn't know what to do with a virgin goddess who had been raped. It wasn't until 2023, after intensive therapy and while producing a documentary about her life, that Brooke decided to speak publicly. She didn't name her attacker. She didn't seek justice. She simply said, "I wanted to reclaim my voice. Not to protect myself, but so other women, other children who were touched and told to stay silent, know they're not alone." Then, Brooke returned to the Broadway stage, playing Morticia Addams in The Addams Family. She didn't need to play the innocent girl anymore, or the seductive icon. She performed with real experience, real pain. The audience rose in applause, not just for her acting, but because they could feel her rebirth. Not from the spotlight, but from the truth, finally spoken. I was once photographed nude as a child, assaulted, made to believe I didn't deserve to be a mother. But I'm still here. And I've learned vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the starting point for living authentically. Today, Brooke lives with her husband and 2 daughters in New York. She takes pride in her daughters' independence and strength, especially Rowan, who recently turned 22. Brooke shared that she strives to create a stable and loving environment for her children, a stark contrast to the unstable childhood she once knew. Her 2 daughters are Rowan Frances Henchy, born in 2003, and Greer Hammond Henchy, born in 2006. Both girls grew up in a home without paparazzi flashes, without child-sized makeup, motionless auditions like the ones their mother endured. I don't want them to be famous. I want them to be healthy. Brooke, in a 2017 interview, she never pressures her daughters to pursue entertainment, but she also doesn't hide her past. When Rowan once asked about her grandmother signing the contract for Brooke's nude photos, Brooke didn't look away. She sat down, looked her daughter in the eyes, and said, "It's something I can't change. But I'm here to make sure it never happens to you. I don't want them to grow up and then have to find themselves in a panic." She's learned to apologize when she loses her temper. She asks, "How are you feeling today?" instead of "What did you accomplish today?" And when Greer wanted to post a bikini photo on Instagram, Brooke didn't forbid it. She sat beside her and chose the picture together. I want her to understand, her body isn't for others to admire. It's for her to love. And in 2021, Brooke's eldest daughter Rowan wore the deep wine red dress that Brooke once wore to the Golden Globes in 1998. But this time, there were no paparazzi. No contracts. No mother behind her, fixing her hair. Just Brooke, sitting on the staircase, eyes brimming with tears, snapping a photo on her phone, whispering, "You don't know I once wore that dress to hide the scars inside. And now, you wear it as a symbol of freedom." Brooke once feared she would become another Terry. But now she understands, "My mother used me as a ticket into Hollywood. But I've used love to rebuild the childhood I lost through my own daughter." Brooke Shields is not a legend. She is proof. Proof that no matter how many hands tried to shape her, own her, or break her, there exists a woman who dared to rise, dared to speak, and dared to love herself again. If you've ever been hurt for daring to be yourself, misunderstood for living differently, or broken for loving deeply, then Jenny McCarthy's story is for you. With just one photo shoot, Jenny McCarthy became America's national sex doll, the silent victim of a pleasure empire called Playboy. She was once labeled a dumb bombshell, a half-naked woman preaching medicine, and a delusional mom screaming about feng shui at her sick child's bedside. Buckle up. We're about to descend into hell, and only the strong make it back. At 52, through every tear, she remembers her bitter past. From Catholic schoolgirl to sex symbol, the free fall from heaven to hell. No one believed that a devout Catholic girl who wore modest uniforms to church every Sunday could become America's sex symbol with just one camera click. But for Jenny McCarthy, it was a terrifying free fall. In 1993, a 20-year-old girl from Evergreen Park, a small town filled with churches and expectations, chose a path of no return, posing nude for Playboy. It wasn't just a betrayal of her faith and family, it was a devastating explosion to her dignity, values, and youth. To escape the disappointed stares of her parents, Jenny sent them on a week-long cruise, just to hide the fact that she was about to appear on the cover of one of the world's most infamous adult magazines. When they came back and found out the truth, everything shattered. Tears, conflict, rejection, an entire family plunged into crisis. She once said, "I saw my mother completely break down. She couldn't even breathe." But worse than that, after Playboy released the issue, Jenny stopped being a person. She became a commodity. Harassing calls flooded in, filthy offers poured out, and predatory stares followed her. From the church pew to the studio set, everyone wanted to own Jenny McCarthy. The painful question is, did she ever truly have a choice? Or was she just the first casualty in a deal with hell? Next, we'll enter the darkest part of her life, where flesh-fueled parties, crushing loneliness, and lecherous old men pushed Jenny to the edge. Do you have the courage to keep going? Debauchery and the naked truth, where angels fall. What comes to mind when you hear Playboy Mansion? Glamorous lights? Beautiful women, fine wine, and music. In reality, for Jenny McCarthy, it was a gilded nightmare where the dazzling lights only masked the stench of lust and power. From the moment she stepped into Hugh Hefner's infamous mansion, Jenny was overwhelmed, not by its beauty, but by the brazen shamelessness of the so-called celebrities, rotted in both body and soul. She once recalled in a shocking interview, "I walked into a room. An old man, clearly a faded star, was panting on top of a girl young enough to be his granddaughter as a crowd laughed hysterically. I can never forget the smell of sweat, stale liquor, and cheap perfume. No innocence survived those parties." Only corroded souls, every smile was a cut, every laugh a desperate cry no one heard. Jenny, the rising sex symbol, quickly became dessert in the eyes of the powerful. They didn't call her by name, but by filthy nicknames, as if she were just a doll made of flesh. They coaxed, trapped, drugged, and if you didn't play along, you disappeared. Once, she dared to reject an aging director in a VIP room. By morning, she was cut from the shoot with a single message: "You're no longer a fit." The price of staying clean in Playboy's world wasn't dignity, it was erasure. Behind every dazzling photo was a curse. Behind every seductive pose was a stare waiting to consume. Jenny wasn't just fighting to protect her body, she was clinging to the last shred of her humanity. Have you ever wondered how many stars lost their souls just for a moment under the spotlight? Next, we'll enter an even darker chapter, when Jenny lost love, lost her small family, and began a desperate fight to save the one child she had in this life. Are you ready? When a mother becomes a warrior, they say love can heal all wounds. But for Jenny McCarthy, love was what dragged her to the edge of the abyss. And from that darkest place, she was forced to rise, not as a sex symbol, but as a mother screaming on the edge of life and death for her little boy. In 1999, Jenny married director John Asher. They seemed like the perfect couple, famous, attractive, united by a shared passion for art. But everything began to crumble when their son, Evan, was diagnosed with autism before the age of 3. That's when the true nightmare began. Jenny recalled, "My son suddenly stopped communicating. No smiling, no talking, no eye contact. I felt like he was drifting away, and I didn't know how to bring him back." John Asher couldn't handle the pressure. He blamed Jenny, blamed genetics, blamed fate, anything but himself. Then he left, abandoning Jenny to face it all alone, a single mother with no money, no hope, and a child sinking into silence. Jenny went into overdrive. She devoured medical research, slept with books beside her, and tried every treatment, traditional and spiritual. Until one day, she declared, "I believe vaccines caused my son's autism." That statement hit like a nuclear bomb in the medical community. Jenny was shunned by the world. The media mocked her. Doctors called her dangerous. Talk shows invited her only to ridicule and manipulate her words. She lost roles, lost endorsement deals, lost friends. But there was one thing she never lost, her faith in her son. Jenny turned down lavish parties and million-dollar castings to spend every moment taking Evan to therapy. Every glance, every first whispered "Mom," every trembling hug was all she needed to keep fighting. Despite harsh criticism from the medical world, Jenny became a symbol for thousands of mothers with autistic children, women who felt abandoned by the healthcare system. Through her book Louder Than Words, she shared that dark journey.